There's a lot of large files in SharePoint document libraries, but Copilot Studio can't read them because they're too big. Just take a look at the question I tried to ask right here. Copilot Studio couldn't answer it. Why? Well, let's take a look at my document library. I got 5 PDFs here, and they're all 25 megabytes each. Copilot Studio can only handle up to 7 megabytes each. So what do we do about that? Well, let's check out the Knowledge tab of our agent. I've already tried adding the document library. Didn't work. But I also know if I were to manually upload the files into the agent, I could use files up to 512 megabytes each. So what if we built a Power Automate flow that synced those files from the SharePoint document library over to the agent on a daily, hourly basis, whatever you want, and then my Copilot could read really large files and answer all the questions I want it to. And so that's what we're going to do today. Let's go build this Power Automate flow together from scratch. I've switched over to Power Automate so we can build the flow together, and I'm going to create a new flow, a scheduled cloud flow. And I want to use a scheduled cloud flow because that way we can sync the files from the SharePoint document library to the agent at a regular interval. So you could choose 1 hour, 1 day, every 4 hours, just kind of whatever you like there, and it's going to work out great. The next thing that we need to do is get the unique identifier of the Copilot agent so that we can use it to attach knowledge to the agent later on in the flow. I can get that from the Copilots table, and I can do that by filtering the Copilots table by the agent's name. And so here we're talking about the display name of the agent. You can just go ahead and copy and paste it out of the Copilot Studio Agent editor and hit filter rows there. We'll go ahead and save our agent so we can run this flow, do a little test, and see what the name of that column is. That was pretty quick. Scroll down here looking for the bot ID, and there it is. So there's a bot ID right there. You've got a really long series of letters and numbers, and that's the unique identifier, folks. So there we've got it. Gonna quickly tidy up the name here because I really like to have my naming conventions in place. Then the next thing I'll do is create a new variable. And by creating a new variable, I'll make it very easy for myself to go ahead and find that unique identifier we'll be using a few times throughout the agent. So I'll name that var copilot, make the type string, and here we're going to have to write a short expression because this list rows action right here, well, it usually outputs an array, and we're just trying to return one value and get that value into this variable right here. So I have to type this out. It'll be list rows underscore copilots, just like our agent's name. And remember, your spaces turn to underscores inside of the expression editor. Then I'll type value so I can get the array of values that was returned by that action. And another question mark outside of the first function. Here's where I'll put the name of the unique identifier column, which is bot ID. Just copied and pasted it there. And that will result in the unique identifier being stored inside this variable. The next thing that we need to do is we want to be able to sync all the files in this document library over to the agent on a recurrent basis. But we only want to sync the new files. So if I have the first 4 files, 1, 2, 3, 4, already uploaded to the agent, we don't want to send all 5 of the files in this document library each and every time. We just want to send the last one right here. And so to do that, we're going to have to get some information about both the SharePoint document library and the agent's current set of knowledge. To get information about the document library, we'll use the get files action, and we'll point it at my SharePoint site and document library. And I'm also going to name this SharePoint files. Then the next thing we'll do is we will look at the knowledge that our agent has. And once again, we'll be relying upon, you guessed it, a list rows action. We'll call this list rows action Copilot knowledge because that's really what it is. Copilot's knowledge is stored inside of the Copilot components table. And maybe we'll just take a really quick detour here and I'll show you how I figured that out. There are a lot of system tables inside of Power Platform that are just something you don't think about every day, but all of your apps, your flows, their definitions, tables, everything are stored inside of tables, and that includes Copilots too. So if you come over here to tables and you go search for all, because you want to get all the tables, and here we'll start to write Copilot while this thing is loading up. And in a moment, you're going to see a couple of Copilot related tables come in here. There we go. So we have Copilot, Copilot component, a few other things, but here we're really focused on this Copilot component table. And if you want to start to see what data is in here, you can add a few more columns. But what we're looking for today is the component type, which is called knowledge. So you go to filter by, and here you can see that we've got a couple things here. We've got knowledge source, we've got bot file attachment, and yeah, there you go. See, look, Copilot Playground. That's the name of that SharePoint document library that we had in there before. But we want to upload a bot file attachment instead. So just hold on to that one in your memory. We're gonna need that later. Let's switch back to Power Automate and continue onward here. We want to get only the name of the Copilot component. That's the name of the file that was uploaded. And then what we want to do is we want to filter on the specific agent that we're working with. So if we go back to that Copilot components table, actually even better. No, this is the one we want. Let's click on columns here. And one of these columns, it's called parent bot ID, is actually a lookup. It's actually a lookup to the Copilot table. That's the one that we want to target. So we'll copy the logical name from over there, and we'll start to type that name out with some interesting little slashes there that we need to target lookup columns. And here's the first time our variable comes into play. So we'll put var Copilot, and now it's just going to filter on what knowledge is already inside of that agent. This is probably a pretty good time to test things. So we'll go ahead and we'll do that test. We will do a manual test here, run the flow. Give it a moment to think. And of course, this is gonna go off without a hitch. So it's found our SharePoint files. Here we can see that there's a couple documents inside this library, large PDF file 1. Really love that naming convention. And then over here for the list rows action in Dataverse, we're going to see the knowledge for our specific bot, or the Copilot Studio agent. Now, if you review the run results carefully, you would have noticed that the values returned were all of the components inside the agent. We had the knowledge, we had the topics, we had the actions, absolutely everything, and we just wanted the knowledge. So how do we go ahead and get that? Well, we need to go back to our tables and figure out that column name so we can filter on it, the column name where the component type is stored. Then, because it's a choice type of column, we don't want to get this text value right here, which is bot file attachment. We want to get the number beside it, number 14. So number 14, the column name is component type. We'll go back to our flow and we'll type in and component type equals 14. And this time when we rerun that flow, it's going to work a lot better. In fact, we shouldn't see anything at all because the Copilot agent that we've built right now doesn't actually have any knowledge inside of it. So there you go. The value equals blank. That's exactly what we wanted. The next step is, now that we've gotten a list of files currently inside of SharePoint and a list of files currently inside of the agent, inside of Dataverse, we need to build some flow actions that compare those two results and only get us the files that we need to upload. So we start by creating a select action, And the select action is going to get us a name of all of the file names that are currently being used as knowledge inside of our agent today. We'll get the body and value from the list rows of Copilot knowledge action there. Then we'll hit the little T button and we will look for the name. When you hit that little T button and don't write anything else other than just the name of the property, it's going to output a simple array. So a list of file names, large file name 1, large file name 2, large file name 3. And it's going to make it really easy for comparisons to happen. The next thing we're going to do is take that result from the select action and we are going to use it to filter what's inside of our SharePoint list. So we'll grab the body and value from right there. Then we'll start to write a filter query. We want to compare against the output of the previous action, which was a select action. And we want to pick does not contain the file name with extension. And you might wonder where this came from. It is a column name inside of SharePoint. It's just like a default column name. It exists in every list. And it's the file name with the extension, large file name 1.pdf. Perfect. We'll hit the save button. We'll hit test so you can see what these actions are outputting. Hit done. And looks like they fired off without a hitch. If we look at the raw outputs here, the first action, it's not going to return anything because our Copilot agent doesn't currently have any files as knowledge. But it might later, so it's important to do that step. Then in the outputs here, in the second one, remember we're filtering the SharePoint document library to find which files we need to upload. And here we got large PDF file number 1. We've got large PDF file number 3. These things don't necessarily return back in order, but there are 5 files here inside of that array, so that's exactly what we wanted. Success! Okay. Now that we've got the list of files that we want to upload, we need to do and apply to each action because we want to loop over all of the files inside of the filter array and get them uploaded into our agent. So I will click add. We've got an apply to each. Great, that's working how I want it. Then I want to put something inside of this apply to each. I want to put a get file content action. So get file content from SharePoint. And doesn't look like it wants to go in there, does it? There we go. There's the little plus button. Still getting used to that new editor. We'll pick Copilot Playground, and here we want to get the file identifier. Now, if we just go and type Identifier, I think we're going to find it in the list right here. But the problem is we want to get the identifier from the filtered array, not this action. So instead, we're going to have to write a small expression here, and we're going to write items, and we're going to say apply to each, because that's the name of this loop action right here. So items apply to each. And then once again, we'll put in the name of that column, Identifier. And when we click add, there we go. So now it's going to get the file content from that specific SharePoint file. SharePoint file. Great. Now we're finally at the point where we can start adding the knowledge to our bot here. So that's exciting. So we'll say add a new row, and we've got to do that with Dataverse. And we'll name this action bot component because the table name is something similar. It's Copilot components, and you might remember that from one of our previous flow actions. I'm going to pick the component type bot file attachment because bot file attachments are things like PDFs, Word documents, Excel, anything you upload to the agent as a file. And for the schema name here, we have to do a little bit of research. So we'll go back to that Copilot components table, and you'll recall that I already had a knowledge source inside of the agent, which was SharePoint knowledge source type. We can see what the schema looks like, the schema name for this one, if we go all the way over to the right here. And we can see that the pattern for the schema name looks like this. So we want to copy and paste right up to here with that little period value into the chat. Then we type .file, and the last thing that we want to do is we want to get that file name extension, the file name and the extension, so large document file.pdf as the suffix to the name. So I think if we click on this items, we can copy and paste that code, make it a little bit faster. Instead of identifier, we'll say file name with extension and hit the add button. Now there's a couple other parameters here in the advanced parameters. We're going to need to do the description, we're going to need to do the name, and the parent bot ID. So 1, 2, 3, just like that. These pop up. So for the description, we'll pick Power Automate File Upload, and you'll see where that comes in later. When we can see the file inside of the agent, we'll see the description beside it as Power Automate File Upload. For the name, we'll pick the file name with extension once again. So I'll just copy and paste that into the expression editor. Plunk, there we go. And for the parent bot ID, we're going to use our variable that we created earlier, which is var Copilot ID. But we do need a little bit of interesting syntax here. And I'm going to type bots with some round brackets beside them. And I'm going to pick var Copilot because that's how we do a lookup. Bots, round bracket, var Copilot, round bracket. Make sure you have that slash at the start. Very important that you get that 100%. Then we'll go and upload our file because we've created the new record, and after we've created the record, that's when we upload the file. So we'll add upload a file or image. Let's use the same name as before. Let's grab the file name with extension and copy and paste it in there. For the table name, we'll do Copilot components. And for the row ID, we can just get that from the previous action. We'll hit dynamic content. You can type in unique. That's a little trick that I learned. And here we'll pick the bot component ID. For the column name, there's only one, so choose file data. And for the content, we're grabbing the file content for the SharePoint action inside of this loop. So we'll pick file content. There you go, and that's from that action right up there. Now there's one more very important step that we have to do to make this all work here, and it's that we have to publish our agent. So if we were adding knowledge manually inside of Copilot Studio, after we've added all 5 of those files one by one, we'd have to hit the publish button so that the user using this agent can access the information that is inside of those PDF files. But the question is, how do we do that inside of Power Automate? The way that we do it is with something called a bound action. And if you've never used a bound action inside of Dataverse before, first of all, you're in for a treat. But a bound action is just an action that you can perform on the selected table. In this case, I've got my Copilots table. And here in this list, there's a series of actions that you can perform on it. We've got the ability to authorize the agent, create bot components, delete the bot outright. Don't know why we'd want to do that. But down here you can see PVA publish, and that's what we want to do. So now instead of having to go manually click on that publish button for our agent, we just run the publish action. That's pretty great. The last thing left to do here is to add the Copilot variable. So the Power Automate flow knows which Copilot to publish. And now, the moment we've all been waiting for, we can go ahead and run this flow. So when I click run, the Power Automate flow is going to go one by one through all of those files and upload them each into the Copilot Studio Agent. And as you can imagine, that's going to take a little bit because Each of these files are 25 megabytes each, and they have to be vectorized. So we're going to take a little break and come back in a moment. It's going to seem like no time at all for you. And once this flow is done, we're going to get these files into our agent. All right, the flow completed successfully. So let's head on over to our agent's knowledge to see what happened. And here we can see all 5 of the files from SharePoint have synced over. That's awesome because we're no longer limited by this 7 megabyte file limit in SharePoint. That's right. We can sync any file up to 512 megabytes and it's going to work here in our agent. So just to prove that out, I'll go ahead and ask a question here. What are the Microsoft Partner of the Year awards? And the agent is going to go and be able to figure out what the answer is from the files that we have uploaded. That's awesome. Now there's one more step that I recommend that you do here. And it is when a file is removed from the SharePoint document library, you probably want to delete it from the agent as well. So I'll leave a link to one of my articles in the show notes at matthewdevaney.com, and you're going to be able to follow that tutorial and do the remaining steps.